We now have an additional scratch in the second race today. In the second race, scratch number 2, Slipstream. Race 2, scratch the 2, Slipstream.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Talking Horses. Andy Serling, soon to be joined by Travis Stone. It is great to be back here. Of course, Travis Stone will be filling in for Anthony Stabile throughout the rest of the week. Anthony will be back when we get back to Belmont Park in just 2 weeks' time, but it's nice to be back. A beautiful day here at Saratoga. Unfortunately, fortunately for us, we did not get the brunt of the rain. Our thoughts are with people that are downstate, where they got a tremendous amount of rain, to say the least. But up here, a little over a half an inch, but we are off the turf today. But it is a gorgeous day at Saratoga, and for me, it's great to be back. And I do want to thank everybody for their kind wishes while I was out the past week. You know the drill. Head on over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, go to nairabets.com. We will match for $200 of your initial deposit if you use the promo code SPA200. And you too can be a member of Naira Bets, sport racing in New York, and keep the money in the game. We've got a 50-50-50 bonus today. That's Saratoga, Del Mar, and Delaware Park as well. Earn that $15 bonus if you bet $50 or more on each track, as long as you opt in on Naira Bets. Also, we've got the Jockey Club Gold Cup Challenge this weekend. Of course, we'll get to that in a second. We'll start off with the Low Rollers. Low Rollers every Thursday and Sunday, just 2 left. Always a fun contest. $40 buy-in, $30 towards the live money, $10 towards the prize pool. Head on over to the 4-Star Dave and go see Jay and go see Ray and sign up. Low Roller Contest, a fun way to play today. I think a good way to get through today's card as well. Now we'll get to that Jockey Club Challenge. Jockey Club Challenge, of course, it used to be the Woodward Challenge. We flip-flopped those 2 races. That's this Saturday, the 12th of 12 races. A $3,000 buy-in you can play on track as well as through Naira Bets. Register now at naira.com/contest. You have until 5 o'clock tomorrow to sign up for the Jockey Club Gold Cup Challenge. And finally, last but not least, Saratoga Live. Just 5 shows left. 5 days of racing left here at Saratoga before we head downstate. I believe it is from 1 to 6:30. And there he is, the man, Travis Stone. Travis, how are you?
Doing well. How are you today?
I'm good. It's nice to see you, even from afar.
Yeah, what's that? I'm having a hard time hearing you out here, but it's a beautiful day, despite the fact the rain rolled through. I was walking in, and it felt like summer sort of broke a little bit, and here we are heading toward fall already. But it's unfortunately, the scratches hit us quite a bit, but still some money to be made, I think.
I agree, and if perhaps somebody in the truck can find a way for Travis's voice to be in my ear, I'll be able to actually hear him during the show, as opposed to just hearing it through the loudspeaker. But then again, if Travis can't hear me, that might be a big benefit to him. But you'll all be able to hear us. Race number 1, we are off the turf. 1 1/16 goes to 1 1/8 on the main track. And Travis, a horse that you're familiar with from running at Churchill, and of course you called this race, is Sabayako, winning on May 9th down at Churchill. Feels like one of 2 here for Merton Cantermasi, who has a very strong hand in today's first race.
Yeah, with solid numbers off the claim as well, so there's some things to like from that perspective too. Freshened up since that race at Churchill. We've seen Churchill horses do fairly well all summer long, particularly on the dirt here at Saratoga. The dirt program in Kentucky is very strong. Figures to hold a strong hand, has some tactical speed, which is going to be useful, although I defer to the other runner from this barn. She certainly has a long look and in a pretty compact field.
I agree. I think if you look at the overall resume of the number 1 B-Bit, even though this horse had a chance on the turf, you have to think that Merton was particularly happy to see this race come off. And while we don't like to see these races come off the turf, Merton Cantermachi's had a kind of a tough run since we got back to Belmont in April. And he might get his first actual break where he has 2 of the 4, and you and I have them 1-2 in here. B-Bit looks like the stronger of the 2. And
yeah, it just felt like this was a pace play for her, right? I mean, Joelle, I think, has one objective, and that's get right to the front from that inside draw and try and bottom out this field. 2 turns shouldn't be a problem. Has some good 2-turn races on paper, good dirt races on paper. Purely a pace play. Wouldn't be surprised if he runs 1-2, but yeah, B-Bit was my top pick in here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Subayako will be in front of B-Bit or not. It's kind of close, depending, but the rail is such an advantage, these mile and eighth races. While Positive Skew stayed in, doesn't really have any dirt form. Obviously, the 7, Yes, I'm Evil, has some form. It's tough to bet this barn. I mean, Peter Walder has struggled shipping in at this meet. Not a huge number of starters, but a guy who wins at a high percentage. They haven't performed at the level we often see his horses running at.
Yeah, my problem with her was she just seems to fall out of the race early and is going to have a lot of ground to make up in a race. I don't feel like there's enough pace to suit her late kick. You're right, Peter Walder hasn't had the best of meets up here. Barn solid overall in the year, though, so maybe just can warm up a little bit with this spot. Luis Saez is a good speed rider. I don't like Luis Saez as much coming from far off the pace. Maybe he decides to put her into the race a little bit. That's not something she tends to do. She showed a little bit of speed at Keeneland a few races back, but her most recent races, she's fallen off. Maybe the stretch out helps her get a little bit closer as well.
And I think, when you get these smaller fields, they end up being much more compact. So her pace disadvantage is at least lessened a little bit, though I don't disagree. She's probably a little bit pace compromised in general, and she might not be as good as either one of the 2 Cantermachi runners. Race number 2, I don't know about you, but I hope that Slipstream is okay, because I thought that he was a virtual cinch in this race if the race was off the turf. And instead, with him coming out, it's really a lot of guesswork with horses that are first-time starters or really turf-met horses or Money Bolt. And at the end of the day, I'm not overly thrilled with Money Bolt in this race, but I don't know where else to go.
Yeah, I mean, this was a curious move by Steve Asmussen here. Ran on turf on debut, ran okay, showed some speed, wasn't the worst of efforts, but then entered this horse main track only, which was curious to me, showed intent. I looked up his numbers in second-time starters off the turf. They're actually somewhat okay with a near positive ROI, so I thought that was encouraging, and I thought there was some good dirt pedigree on the dam side anyway. This was just an interesting, it's not too often you see a horse debut on turf, get main track only for their second career start, and of course then get the benefit of having it come off the turf. So I'm going to go to Money Bolt. It's tentative because I think there's a lot of guesswork in a race like this, but this is a very curious move by Steve. I sort of trust what he's doing here. I think he maybe even had intent of running this horse on turf just to get him going a little bit. They paid a lot of money for it too.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess with Munnings a little bit because he has had success as a turf sire. Of course, he's also the sire of the fastest 2-year-old dirt horse based on Beyer figures we've seen with Jack Christopher on Saturday. And it just felt like a bit of a negative because Steve, who has these unreal numbers with his 2-year-old firsters and dirt sprints, has horrifically bad numbers with his 2-year-old first-timers and turf sprints. Now, maybe he's trying to do something about that and be a little more competitive in those races, but this didn't work out. I guess the key, though, with Money Bolt is he also has speed, so he does figure to be in front, for better or worse. The track is fast.
Yeah, and Santana's such a good aggressive rider. See it all the time in Kentucky. He's not afraid to put a horse on the engine right off the mark. They're going to have to go now with moving to the inside draw with the scratches to the inside. So I think speed's the intent here, straight to the front. And when you look through this field, I really think you're guessing who could possibly go with him early. And I think that experience edge is so big. I was talking about it over the weekend with Michelle when you were off the show. And you get later in the meet, the experience factor, I think, personally becomes more and more of a key player. A lot of the horses that were precocious, the first-timers, have been unveiled, trying to get into the stakes races in the later portion of the meet. So I think experience warrants a big edge in a spot like this.
It does. And, as far as Snow Candy, I guess Snow Candy has a little bit of dirt pedigree, and there is an MTO on the outside, Lanzoni, for trainer Rudy Rodriguez. There's just no pedigree to speak of whatsoever, but I don't think you can ignore an MTO in this spot. I have the horse second. You've got the horse all the way as far down as fourth.
Yeah, I'm guessing a little bit there. I didn't like the numbers, Rudy, first off the bench, or not off the bench, I should say, first-time starters in maiden claiming races like this. That workout on August the 24th, though, was curiously quick, and maybe that signals some intent. And again, a main track-only entrant, I mean, they meaningfully put horses in that spot, so maybe there's something he saw in terms of getting this horse going on the main track. Was a bit of a guess, because I couldn't really make heads or tails outside of Moneyball. This race is just very tricky. There's a lot of horses with some turf pedigree. Now it doesn't really translate to dirt. So, yeah, I mean, wouldn't be surprised if I'm playing pick fives, I'm using many in here. This is the type of race I feel like I want to survive with.
Right. It feels like a race where Moneybolt's probably the likeliest winner, but will be 2 or 3 to 5, you know, probably going to be a very short price. And it's hard to be overly confident that this horse is worth it in that situation because the barn didn't show the confidence to run first time in the dirt. Now, there was also a possibility that they had so many horses for dirt races, dirt 2-year-old races, that they figured, let's throw this one on the turf, and then they entered MTO in a race like this. So that's also a possibility with them because they have, I mean, the Steve Asmussen barn is represented in every single maiden 2-year-old dirt race we're in. So maybe they just had an abundance of horses, and that's why they threw this one on the turf, thinking, hey, he's a Munnings. Maybe he'll handle it, and now he's on the right surface. See how it plays out. Race number 3, well, I got to tell you, the wait for East Wing, who's now been scratched 3 straight times off the delicious trip last time out, I'm kind of done waiting. You know, it's sort of like asking somebody out. And for me, when she doesn't show up on the 3rd date, I finally give up at that point, and I'm finally giving up with East Wing. I don't think we're ever going to see her run. I'm parting ways on her.
Yeah, I hear you there. I mean, you have a lot of experience getting stood up on the 3rd date. You seem very acutely aware of that.
Usually the 2nd date. But, you know, that's why I always eat nice restaurants, Travis. So when they don't show up, at least I get to have a good meal. And the number 2, Esatika coming out, is another major surprise in here. And she must be a vet scratch. Because, my God, she would have been a huge favorite in this race. And you're just not left with that much form. You have the 3 Miss Alex on top.
I thought the race 2 back, where the pace was coded red fast on time form, was good enough to win here. I thought she was going to have a hard time keeping up with Esatika. When she came out, I now see Miss Alex as being alone on the lead. I was a little bit worried that the rain would have dried out and we would have had a faster track. Maybe there's still some moisture in there, because I thought Miss Alex might have just moved up on the slop 2 back. But if there's a little bit of lingering moisture, that's not going to hurt. And I just think she's got a big pace advantage in here. She should be going straight to the front and should prove tough to catch. That last race wasn't that great. I was a little concerned with her performance there. She's just backed up repeatedly. She did have a bit of a bump at the 5/8, but it wasn't the best of trips. The pace was fast, though, in there as well. She was bad last time. She's going to have to bounce back. That is a concern, but pace play for me here.
Aren't you afraid the 6 Danny Deep Cuts is going to go with Benji Hernandez, though? Don't you expect that horse to be forward in here?
Yeah, without a doubt, probably going to be forward as well. And that pace as well was coded red last time, but she ran much slower. 10 buyer points slower, and so I figured, maybe she's not going to be as much of a factor lingering to the end. But no, without a doubt, she's going to be forward as well. I don't buy into 2-horse speed duels. I want to see a 3-horse speed duel on paper.
Good luck with that.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like it takes 3 to party, so to speak. A lot of times you get 2 of them up there. They sort of find a rhythm together. That was the play here. Miss Alex, I don't love Miss Alex. This is not a huge conviction play. It's a scratch into play in many ways. But I'll take her.
Yeah, I think, you know, when you talk about speed duels, it's not, and you know this, you can't see a fast pace with 2 horses hooking up. It's not always even that 3 horses need to engage the whole time. I'll give you an example, the Lake George. When technical analysis left at the beginning of that race, it forced the speed in that race, a Todd Pletcher horse, to show more speed. And then when the other speed kind of joined, the pace was already on. And if a 3rd player engages even early, that will heat up a pace. And I tend to agree with you. 2 horses going on the front end are 2 horses engaging, but they're not necessarily involved in the duel. I prefer the 4 Red Pepper Grill in here. I just think 1 1/8 may have been way too far for this horse last time. And also was chasing 2 to 3 wide for much of the race, and thought that was a time when it rained on August 1st. You really wanted to be down inside right at that time. That was before we got that huge storm before the Amsterdam, where the rail may not have been the best place to be. But before it seemed like the running was being done down the inside. So I think she was compromised by distance, sort of race dynamics, but also where she was placed in the racetrack. And you go back to her races when Chuck Lawrence claimed her. I think both the race on July 22nd and June 1st are good enough to be effective and win this race. And now you've got Joe Sharp, first time in a spot where he can win. She can win with Luis Saez, and I just thought she was a very logical horse in here. You have her second, so I'm sure you don't particularly disagree.
No, not at all. In fact, that race on July 22nd, that was a quick pace, and it favored horses, I thought, coming from off the pace, which was a little bit of a downgrade for me today. But it also felt like they claimed her for 16. She obviously ran pretty well. They saw her run well. Maybe we'll take a shot for 40, stretch her out. Perhaps she wants to go far. That didn't work out. She was nowhere. Now she's back in a spot where she's going to be more competitive. And yeah, I have her up there high because I think she's a very logical. Of the closers, I like her the most. And if that duel does develop and the pace does heat up, I think she's the most likely off the pace horse.
All right, moving on to race number 4. This race was scheduled for the dirt, and with 5, and obviously the story in this race is what you do with the number 2 American Power, who I have second, you have on top. And we'll go back to the race finishing second to the talented but somewhat fragile looking at bikinis back on April 24th, and I think this is sort of the race because you're going to see Jose use the pace advantage. And, you know, I wanted your opinion on that. 7 furlong races are so much easier to wire, but Jose has to be careful not to let other talented horses in the race because I'm not convinced he's the best horse in the race. And I think he really needs to utilize that pace advantage. Your thoughts?
Completely agree. I actually really agree with the idea. He might even be the best horse in the race if you were to fast forward time a few months. Obviously, Aloha West has a lot of talent and could be a real up-and-coming horse. This was a pace play again for me, and I feel like I've chased a couple of pace plays over the past few days, and they haven't really panned out. You know, it's hard to wire races in general, but this is a situation where Jose has to be aggressive and establish that advantage and then maintain it. I think we see too much here where these riders get that advantage early, which is great, but then they allow the other horses to get back into the race on the far turn, and that changes the complexion of the race. You get horses within striking range, they suddenly re-engage into the race, and you sort of discount the entire advantage you spent the first 3 or 4 furlongs establishing. That last race, I mean, obviously there's much tougher horses. I was worried Firenze Fire was going off form, but bounced back with a really big effort, and obviously an interesting effort this past weekend. So I just thought
he was hungry.
Yeah, he was hungry. I'm always hungry, so I can relate. Yeah, just a pace play for me. Jose's got to be aggressive, but I agree, might not even be the best horse in the race.
So you have left in a 5-horse field my top selection out, 3 Techniques, and we'll go back and show the 3rd place finish, 2 back. In a paceless race in the Jan Nehrude, I thought this horse ran a race that would make him very tough in here. You take away his Vanderbilt, and granted he didn't run well, but you know, that was a race where nobody picked up any ground whatsoever, and maybe he just fell off form. But I thought 3 Technique that Irad Ortiz would be a little more aggressive, get in the game, much like he did in this Jan Nehrude, and I just thought he might be better than these. You obviously loathe his chances today.
Well, I figured this was coming when I saw you had submitted this video for a replay, and this is a horse that I've bet a couple of times as of late, and I just feel like I've been chasing some money. I don't like these scenarios where you have a lone speed horse, potentially lone speed horse like American Power, and then a deep closer like 3 Technique, who's just going to be pace compromised in my opinion. And then in general, I felt like the form pattern seemed to be tailing off. I get that last race was a grade 1 and grade 2 prize. Just has been facing some tougher. Maybe this is going to allow him to bounce back. But he's a horse that if you poke through his PPs, he's been single-digit odds quite a bit and just sometimes fails to show up. I was against today, but again, you know, would I want to necessarily have him off a pick 5 ticket? I wouldn't put him on my main ticket because I do think he's going to be a little overbet relative to the others. I think they're going to overbet this class drop a bit. I don't totally hate 3 Technique. We only pick 4. If I could pick 5, though, I'd have him in there.
I don't know. I'm sensing some hate, but you know, now you're just sort of you're going backwards. You know, Bill Parcells is here, and you know you're afraid you'll be walking through the boxes and run into him, and he'll say, "Hey, how come you left my horse out of the top 4?" Aloha West, you have second, is the one that I left out. I'll show a trainer stat for Wayne Catalano, and I will say this horse ran very well last time, and I think his last race is interesting. You just don't have a trainer that horses often don't come back and run back to their big efforts. In all fairness, this horse's effort last time actually was good because he closed into a relatively paceless race.
Yeah, that was my reasoning for putting him so high. That was a blue pace on time for him. Made up quite a bit of ground in that race, posted a big number. Just in form. These are now 6 career starts for Aloha West. He's ran pretty well in all of them. Had an excuse in his race 2 back down at Churchill in a race that was live. The winner of that race, Bango's a good sprinter for the Foley barn. I just thought Aloha West had some good company lines. Won't even be surprised if we see him develop into a decent sort of one turn. I'm not going to say graded horse, but you know, listed stakes type $100,000 horse like he sort of tried to do in the Kelly's Landing 2 back. I like Aloha West. I thought that last race was solid.
It was solid, I agree. And if he runs a similar race today, maybe he can overcome the disadvantage. And Our Last Buck compromised as well. I've always been a fan of. We'll see how he does. Race number 4, 5 running. but you can see from our plays that we have some slightly different opinions. Race number 5 is off the turf, and this will go to 7 furlongs. The mile races for all ages go to 7 furlongs, and we'll show Boldish's last race, and this is one that Linda Rice claimed, and right away maybe paying dividends with this race coming off the turf. I mean, this is a dirt horse in a race that we don't really even know, are there any dirt horses?
Yeah, this is Boldish figures to be pretty tough in here. Linda Rice has good numbers in spots like this. Like you said, this looks like it's going to pay off right off the mark. Catches the right spot in the right field. And I think if you're going to go elsewhere, you might be guessing a little bit. I like to take the proven dirt form. I think the public tends to bet turf form a little bit too much in these types of races, so Boldish was the play for me. Nothing really clever. I just think the most obvious horse on paper.
No, I agree, and it'll be interesting you brought that up. I think it's a very good point. I mean, listen, with the smaller fields, it's hard to find great opportunities, but you have to be alert on these off-the-turf days, because I think sometimes you have to ask yourself, if this race had originally been carded as a dirt race, who would be favored and how would it be bet? And sometimes people get themselves too attached to horses they like in the turf, and I think the perfect example is the horse that you and I both have 4th out of 5, and that's the 3 Mubtada, and I see we're having some technical difficulties with the PA here. Maybe we'll give that a second, and I think we're back. Anyhow, apologize for that. Mubtada, here's what I don't like. Todd Pletcher never showed any interest whatsoever in running this horse on the dirt, Travis. And now, when he's dropping in for a tag, he says, I'm going to leave him in. And what he's really kind of saying, at least to me, is, I hope somebody's going to claim on the turf, and I hope they stick around and claim on the dirt. That's kind of the feeling that I got.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I guess maybe the turf program in the country has gotten stronger, but I do believe that if a trainer has a horse in the barn that they feel has some talent, they're going to start it out on dirt. They're not going to start it out on turf like he did with this colt, although there is some decent turf pedigree there. But I agree with you. I think the scenario in the spot like this is a horse that's probably going to get over bet. It's going to get bet off turf numbers. I hear you on the Todd Pletcher angle. I think that's an interesting way to look at it. It's not like he has great numbers in spots like this. I'm against.
Yeah, I'm interested a little bit in deferred taxes, to be honest with you, because Chad Brown had mentioned to me after his last race, the disappointment, they had very high hopes for him early, that he thought maybe he should try him on the dirt. And if you may remember, this horse was actually entered in a fairly tough dirt maiden special weight and scratched out of that race. So there is actually some intention to run this horse in the dirt. So I think deferred taxes could be a little bit interesting if you're looking for another horse, and that's why I put him second.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Curious, a horse that ran so well in 2 consecutive career starts for good money is in for 75. Maybe they're just trying to, clean out the barn a little bit toward the end of the meet. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this horse runs well. Again, though, I think we're just sort of guessing a little bit behind Boldish. I did think that there was an interesting angle or two on Castle Chaos. There's some okay dirt pedigree, some intent there maybe with the pedigree play. And did you give a look to My Boy Colton at all, who did a little bit of running on debut on turf, lost some ground, but the dam was pretty good on dirt. In fact, she was 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Distaff.
No, I agree. I actually did give that horse a good look and even thought of putting that horse second, My Boy Colton, and I'll probably use him a little as well. I mean, honestly, I think my big opinion in here is not Boldish, but against Mubtada. I'm going to lose if Mubtada wins this race, and I'm committed to that. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I want to lose if he wins, because I think he'll still be a short price, and I'd rather use Boldish and a little deferred taxes in My Boy Colton and hope that the edge is to throw out Mubtada.
Yeah, I think that's a fair play. Yep.
All right. I'm going to visit with my illustrious guest, Naja Thompson, that came by. Travis, you're probably all alone. I still have friends because they haven't seen me in a week. We'll take a quick break to hear from our sponsors at Saratoga Water. We'll be back in about half a minute.
Make business meetings exquisite. Make a weekend outing exquisite. Make a late night snack exquisite. Make a night on the town exquisite. For nearly 150 years, the Saratoga Spring Water Company has been producing the finest spring water available anywhere. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. Andy Serling, joined by Travis Stone as we get through today's card off the turf. Race number 6, though, scheduled for the dirt. And I'm curious to see where your guessing took place in race number 6. I see you and I have both taken the Institute. I'd love to know where the name exactly comes from. What's your thought on the Institute on the rail?
Maybe the Seinfeld reference. Remember that line where they talk
Everything's
about
a Seinfeld reference to you.
It is, but they talk about the
Me too.
Institute. I think that's where they do the like the clothing and the uniforms for the plays on Broadway. I think we prefer to call it the Institute, was the line in the show. Anyway,
Okay.
The Institute has decent pedigree and good workouts and a trainer that is competent and pretty good at this scenario. I don't love the rail. The dam won more than $700,000. She's a greatest stakes winner, won 5 of 15 races. Lone Sib is 0 for 2, but the numbers that the sibling has run are decent, 64, 73 figures. Workout reports seem okay. Into Mischief's a good first out sire. I thought it was a worthy guess from the. I don't love the rail. I'm not against the rail, though. That's my play.
I feel like the horse that this horse have to was second last week, about maybe 2 weeks ago or so. I was here, so probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's run a couple of times. Shalimar Gardens, I believe that's the horse this horse have to, that Horacio de Paz also trains for Barry Schwartz. And, of course, Princess Violet, she won the Grade 1 Madison, I want to say, at Keeneland, and was first and second, as you said, in 14 of 10 races, over $700,000. She's a very, very good racehorse. As you go through here, I thought the biggest shock of the race is number 3 is an Aklarovich horse.
I know.
Saratoga's kind of stealing those Klarovich names. Did you notice that?
There's
of course,
a couple of
Central Banker
them.
was a Klarovich horse.
Yeah, there was a couple of them that they've named recently that sort of took me back when I realized it wasn't Klarovich. So, yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah, I didn't have any great ideas here. I mean, I figured that Illuminato on the outside would probably take money for Brad Cox, a first foal from an unraced dam. They did pay $220,000 for him. It is a Phipps family if you go back to the second dam, and those foals usually sell well. You've left this one out and put Father Walsh. Will probably have speed if it's a Roddy Valenti, Pat Reynolds horse.
Yeah, Twirling Candy is good first off the mark. Pat Reynolds has okay numbers, not a huge sample size to go with, but has done this before. The dam was 2 for 18. She won dirt sprinting. Both Sibs won, and workout reports seem okay. I thought this was a live runner. I am against Illuminato. Brad Cox, a very competent trainer, probably on his way to yet another Eclipse Award. But in New York, 2-year-old first-time starting scenarios, it's not his best stuff. I think the ROI is actually in the negative side, 0.96. So I was just against Illuminato. Felt like, not every Brad Cox first-time starter can win. In a New York-bred race, might get a little bit overbet. I went elsewhere. I thought Father Walsh was another alternative.
We both have Ava K's boy as the one with experience that we're going to use, and that's not surprising. The other two didn't do any running at all. But I feel like Ava's K boy, who ran okay, I just feel like there's too much going on with the firsters for there not to be at least 1 or 2 firsters better. But I do think you always have to use the horse that has the experience, that ran the best race at the very least.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. I mean, the farther we get into the meet, the more experience counts. And I think you're right. Ran just okay. Was no real punch. Was in a good spot. Just didn't really have much of a finish. Feels like if there is a lack of good ability in some of these firsters, is the one that's going to be tough to catch. But you're right. Just the first time starting scene in this race felt a little too fun to fade it.
All right, I've lost Travis in my ear, if anything can be done about that, but I appreciate the effort. Race number 7, we are off the turf, and even though I'm sure in race number 7 we're both going to land on highly motivated, I'm disappointed she doesn't get to run on the turf, because she has a real pedigree for turf, and it's actually a move that Chad Brown's done well with, non-maidens trying the turf for the first time, because she really does have a turf pedigree. Her last race, which we'll take a look at on July 29th, even though she lost and she was a short price that day, I think there's a strong argument it's oddly the best race that she's ever run. This was an unbelievable pace that just completely and totally incinerated. The other 2 horses involved in the pace finished absolutely nowhere in here. I thought she ran remarkably well to get beaten in the very, very late stages. Maybe she'll have to deal with the summer Bruce speed and let her go. But she has rated in the past, and I mean, she just looks like she towers over these, Travis.
I cannot pass up betting a horse involved in a pace like that last time. That was wicked, and it was wicked from start to finish. And to her credit, she was still in the race at about the 16th pole, even though she was desperate for the wire. It was a true, total, utter collapse, and you just have to bet horses back off scenarios like that. I think it's a positive ROI move, and I mean, numbers-wise, she towers over this field, even though her last race is a loss. And you're right, I think it's better. I think it was better than a race at Keeneland, even though the number was appreciably lower. I think she's going to be very tough to catch today.
Yeah, I agree. And she has shown the ability to rate. And she just maybe a little speed crazy off the layoff last time, because we'll take a look at the 8 Summer Brews. This is actually 2 back when she won at Belmont, because she does have a lot of speed. Now, obviously, she doesn't have the speed that we saw from Motivated Seller last time, but it depends on the race's run. I just feel like there are so many better dirt horses in this race that I think people will look at the 3 straight wins, 2 in the slop, and then the second last time, and they're going to overrate Summer Brew in this race. And I feel like she, along with Time Limit, are great bet against.
Yes, I'm against Summer Brew for the reasons you just mentioned, and Time Limit as well. I do have Time Limit toward the bottom of my picks, purely out of respect for Maker and the way his barn is going, and there's some good dirt races on form. Summer Brew, what I don't like about Summer Brew is the layoff off the solid effort in the Niagara, with a lot of potential races in between she could have run in, with a couple of interesting workouts in there as well. So, I mean, she's going to be forward in a spot like this. I just prefer Motivated Seller off that last race, and I think that's going to compromise some of the other speed.
Yeah, I want to focus more towards the horses towards the inside of Motivated Seller. You know I have love for Kansas Kiss, even though she didn't pick it up last time. But at times, she has run dirt races that would make her highly competitive in this race. And Hydra, the horse you have second and I have third, I think people are going to kind of miss her a little bit. And this is the first time in the dirt for Kelly Rubley. Now, obviously, John Robb, who had her before, has a high percentage, but this is a horse that's got plenty of good dirt races, legitimately good dirt races.
And she's capable of sitting off the pace and passing horses. I thought would be useful in a spot like this, because there is going to be a few horses forward, so I think she can drop right off the pace. And you're right, I think that last race is going to dirty up her form a little bit. Doesn't really matter for a spot like this. You have to dig down deep to some of her dirt form, and her dirt form is solid. I think she's a major player.
Right. I'm hoping that the money outside of Motivated Seller goes to the 8 and 9 outside of her, and I want to use the horses inside of her, and I think you and I agree on that, because they may end up offering a little bit of value if you're looking for horses to be second or third in the tries behind Motivated Seller, if you feel like we do that she's a very strong player in here. Race number 8, we did get 4 scratches, which is unfortunate, particularly Dark Storm coming out. We'll see how it plays out in race number 8. We have a slight disagreement in here. I won't disagree with you, though, that Candy Tycoon is probably the horse to beat. Ran against significantly better last time out, and this race at Monmouth we'll take a look at would make him very competitive. My biggest problem with Candy Tycoon, Todd Pletcher has sort of very mediocre numbers with his first time for the tags and dirts, though with dirt routers overall, they're very good, actually. He's 36% with a 202 ROI. I guess he's the worst to beat. Don't you feel a little, Travis, like Candy Tycoon is a horse that spent a lot of his career disappointing?
Yeah, and this is sort of, I scratched into this horse as a top pick, to be honest with you. Probably could have reconfigured the race a little bit. Before there were scratches, I thought he was going to sit an absolute perfect trip behind what I thought was going to be an honest pace. I still think the pace held together enough to allow him to sit in that pocket, sort of right off the pace. I like horses coming third off the layoff with an improved figure in the most recent start. Some good races on form that allows him to be maybe not necessarily the best horse in the race, but certainly competitive enough. This was a trip and pace play for me. When Dark Storm came out, who I actually liked today, I was going to bet and had a good story on, I sort of backed into Candy Tycoon. I'm not going to be surprised if he loses at somewhat short odds, but I also won't be surprised if he wins. I think he is the best horse in the race ultimately. Some fair points that you raised, though.
Yeah, he should, because between Musical America, Shotsky, and Mo Gotcha, you've got 3 horses that kind of have to be forward in here. Yep. So you'd think at least 1.5 to 2 of them would show some speed in this race. So I don't disagree. Should be in a reasonable spot. I like the number 10, 235. This feels like a Diodoro horse that's kind of been laying in wait for a spot like this at Saratoga. And I really want to show the beginning, the first quarter or so of his last race at Pimlico, because I think it's important for people to see. He's in tight early, 5 wide. I think it's important to show exactly the trouble this horse had. And obviously he's not saying he would have won, but you have a horse that breaks about 3/4 of a length slowly right away. And this is a horse that's supposed to be relatively forward here. And now because of the break and the pace slows up tremendously, I think they went 25-3 to the first quarter. back to last, and I'm not obviously comparing him to Secretariat, but remember that move that Secretariat made at Pimlico, and he was forced to make this sort of outrageous move here just to get himself in any contention. Now, I'm not saying that's why he lost by 10 lengths, but already he's expanded this sort of ridiculous amount of energy just to get into position, and I think that badly compromised him. He's a horse that has nothing but figures that fit in here. He's got a trainer that seems to do pretty well with horses he takes over in dirt routes. He just took an ambitious spot, and whatever chance he had to be even remotely competitive last time, which was mild to begin with, was lost at the start, and I think he is very dangerous. And knowing Diodoro and Cohen in these spots, I think he'll be at least a bit forward in here.
Fair. I think my concern with him was that was definitely a slow pace last time. So even though he did have to make a bit of an early wide move, it was in a very slow part of the race and obviously did not run on from there. Certainly a field that would be competitive against these and does have a lot of races on paper. I just want to see him put a good effort forward for Diodoro before I really want to sink my teeth into a horse like this. I also didn't like the outside trip that he projects to get again today. He's got a little bit of tactical speed. We saw that he's able to be a little bit push button early in the race like he did last time. There's enough going on to his inside, though. I felt like, unless something absurd happens where he guns it out of the gate or really pulls back, I felt like a 3-wide trip was almost guaranteed by the way this race was shaking out on paper. That's why I was a little bit against. But I respect for your thoughts here, and is a horse that I'll toss in for sure.
Well, a Diodoro horse that had no trouble with a 3-wide trip last time was Fort Peck, who easily beat the horse that you have seconded here, Journeyman. I know that Journeyman's fast enough to win. I question whether or not he's really a dirt horse. And also, it felt like every single horse from Mike Maker's barn was running a little bit better in their PPs early in the meet. He really was geared up. And not surprisingly, they've slowed down since then. And all he really did, good post or not, and Saez was kind of pick up pieces, right? Last time, didn't American Tattoo Scratch run much better than him?
Yeah, he was more of a pace play for me in this spot as well. And I hear the Maker barn was just red hot early on in the meet. They've definitely tapered off a little bit. Hopefully I'm answering the question. I can't hear you in my ear again. Hopefully I'm sort of teeing up what...
You're not missing much.
Okay, nice. This was also a pace play, and I like the inside projected trip that he figures to sit with that contested pace on the front end. I don't think we can discount the fact that it's a quick run to the first turn, and I think we're going to see the front end of this race get heated up a little bit. And a horse like Journeyman, who likes to pass horses, I hear you on the dirt versus turf, but that race he ran in the Canadian Derby was solid. That was a good number. Puts him in range of some of these. His most recent start proved that he's okay here at Saratoga. I think he's okay. I mean, I don't love him in this spot. Enough for him to pick up pieces, though, and sort of be, as you know, I like to play these horses to come from off the pace to sneak onto the try and the exacta, and that's sort of my play here.
I'm not making fun of the Canadian Derby. I made a Canadian Derby joke last time he ran, and I got criticized on Twitter. I love everything about Canada and all of our neighbors in Canada. And by the way, like my good friend Jeff Bratt up at Woodbine, it was nice to hear from him as well. And I assume Glory Road, you're looking for this race to fall apart a bit, and that's why I assume horses like the 1 and 6 are in your play.
Yeah, exactly. And Glory Road has some Churchill form. Ran fine last time, I thought. The winner came back with a decent number for 32,000. With some of the scratches in here, the starchiness of the pace is definitely muted just a bit, but I still think there's enough going on to give a horse like this a shot.
He has to overcome his trainer. Unfortunately, the second year in a row, the P.G. Johnson is off the turf. Of course, last year it was the most fortuitous off the turf for both Ken McPeak and Harold Lerner, as Simply Ravishing just destroyed the field and went on to win a Grade 1 in her next start. Don't know that we're going to necessarily see that here. I know that Misinterpret is the horse to beat, and I do like her name, and we'll show her last race. I got to tell you, I got a bad feeling about this horse. She is the horse to beat, but you look at the horse she beat, Lemieux. She came back to win an off-the-turf race and ran 9 Beyer points worse. And I'm just not sure that she's that good. And I think with the 8 Let's Be Clear, who's a dirt horse who won last time, I think that Let's Be Clear might be coming out of a race that's equally as good. And I think Let's Be Clear is going to be a much better price. So I'm going to try to beat Misinterpret, even though I have her second.
Yeah, I thought this race was curious. She sort of lost ground for quite a bit of the race and then started to come on again on the far turn with a wide sweeping move. Maybe that was the sign, as you said, of a weak field on paper, or on the racetrack, I should say. And yeah, the runner-up did come back to win, but it was not a very fast buyer, as you said, came back to run a 55. Although the third place horse came back to run respectably, earning a 63 in the subsequent start. This was a main track only play for me. I like the progressive form pattern she shows on paper. She's improved with each and every start. I would not have liked her if this race was going to be run at a mount and eighth or the mount of 16th on the main track. I like the 7 furlong distance for her. I think that's going to help. And I'm not totally sold on Let's Be Clear necessarily being the horse.
Nor am I.
Yeah, so I was a little bit against her, but I won't be surprised if either of them are sort of on the ticket come to the end. But I was a little bit against I was really against Let's Be Clear on the turf. It's unfortunate this race came off. I thought this was a fun race on turf.
I agree.
Let's Be Clear coming to the main track certainly warrants a look, though.
No, listen, I don't love Let's Be Clear either. Obviously, she's got to get 7 furlongs after winning at 5.5. Listen, I like Take the Back Roads. I'm sorry that Tom Amoss scratched her. Yeah. I thought she fit greatly in this race, and I thought it was really 2, 6, and 8, and everybody else. I just feel like Let's Be Clear will be a better price. She has more speed than the number 2 Misinterpret. At least she's shown it more in her races. And I just don't trust that race Misinterpret comes back from. And I just wonder a little bit if she's been more like the 54 buyer she ran 2 back than the 65 buyer that she shows, based on the performance by Lemieux. Now, maybe Lemieux just didn't run her next race, even though she won. And we'll see. She obviously can win. You've got Silvery Rill, who Christophe Clement leaves in for second. I have her third. Christophe does do well leaving horses off the turf.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to poke around, formulate her a little bit, find some stats to really make the story better for her, but ultimately, I find it interesting that he's keeping her in here. She ran fine on turf on debut. The Dam, though, was a minor stakes winner on dirt in Northern California, so it's not like there's an unheard of dirt pedigree here, and just was an interesting consideration that he kept her in, and I'm going to give her a look in here. I mean, the last race she comes out of, a horse that was off the board came back to run okay with a 61 buyer in a subsequent start, so at least she was running against okay horses, even though it was on the alternative surface from today.
Well, one of the reasons that Warfront is one of the most sought-after sires is that his horses can run on anything. They can run any distance, they can run on any surface, so you're never surprised when Warfronts are able to handle turf. Race number 10, our biggest field of the day, as 10 horses have remained in this race, unless somebody's been scratched while we weren't, and nobody's told us. I think this is kind of a fun race, race number 10. The horse you have on top, Stone Cold Warrior, maybe just by the fact that it's an MTO, could end up being favored. I guess he's okay. I want to try to beat this horse, Travis.
This is not a lean. I mean, I was confused with this race on turf. I'm even more confused now that it's on dirt. Stone Cold Warrior, the winner of that last race was an odds-on favorite that was well-meant, went wire to wire. I thought he ran fine. Chasing is now going to be second off to layoff and is well posted outside some of the others in here to sort of see how the race develops. The dirt number is certainly competitive enough. I thought some of the turf horses I was guessing too much on. So again, this would not be that awful term, a best bet by any stretch of the imagination. A horse I'm going to use in that late pick 5, but I'm going to use several in here. There's a lot going on. This is kind of an interesting heat.
I think there is too. I mean, you look at Hot Doctor, who Linda Rice claimed out of turf races, but the debut wasn't great, but I think it fits very, very well. A 52 buyers, horse you have second. I think Hot Doctor makes a certain amount of sense, and because the recent turf races aren't that good, I don't think this horse will be a super short price. A horse that I have in second and putting on top that you have nowhere is the number 11 Timburo's Socks. Well, look at Timburo's Socks. Lost by 9.5 lengths first time out, but finished 8 lengths behind Clear Humor. And Clear Humor, of course, is the horse Stone Cold Warrior, right? Yep. You know, lost to last time. Why can't this horse, runs a turf race, but really probably a better horse on the dirt? Why can't this horse, cutting back on the dirt, be a little effective?
No, I hear you. This is a good cutback for David Donk. He's got good numbers going route to sprint on, certainly on turf. He's got good numbers overall doing this. Not the greatest numbers in the world, solid enough. That debut race was fine. Any sort of improvement off of that puts him in the mix. The last race was not very good, but maybe just didn't want to go that far. Certainly gets a look. I had him as my 5th selection. He is definitely on my pick 5 ticket and the one I drafted up this morning. It was not the best of trips either last time, so I give him a sort of a pass there as well. This is one of those scenarios where if you could just dig deeper than a lot of recent turf form, you can find dirt form that actually fits here and is competitive, and I think that's where you can find value in a spot like this. I respect the top choice selection in here with a horse like this. Is a good move.
All right, we'll see how things play out off the turf today. Travis, thanks so much. Travis, of course, will be joining me all week. Anthony Stabile, wish him the best, and we'll see him back at Belmont. Travis is the other set, and we appreciate you joining us on Talking Horses, and it's great to be back here on a beautiful Thursday here at Saratoga, day number 36 of our 40-day meet, and you need to head to NYRA-Bets. If you're not a member of NYRA-Bets, go to NYRABets.com. Use the promo code SPA200, and we will match the $200 of your initial deposit after your play, and you will be keeping the money in the game and supporting racing in New York. We also have the 50-50-50 with Delmar and Delaware today. If you play through NYRA-Bets and you opt in, I'll give you a second to catch up. There we go. Delmar, Saratoga, and Delaware Park, 50 or more each, opting in, and you'll get that $15 bonus. We also have the low roller contest today and Sunday, the last two low rollers. Great way to get through the card and play the card. $40 buy-in for the live low rollers contest, $30 towards live money, $10 towards the prize pool. Go to the 4-Star Dave and see Ray or Jay, or Ray and Jay, and sign up for the low roller, a terrific way to spend your day at Saratoga. Also, the $3,000 buy-in Jockey Club handicapping challenge this weekend. Go to NYRA.com/contest and register. You'll have until 5 o'clock tomorrow. $3,000 buy-in, cash and seat prizes towards the NHC. You can play on track. You can also play through NYRA-Bets. And finally, Saratoga Live, day number 36, 1 to 6:30 on FS2. That's today. Thanks again for joining us. Travis, thanks again so much. It's nice to see you at least on TV. Perhaps I'll see you in the flesh at some point, and Travis will be once again joining me all week. It's great to be back. John Imbrial up next with a reprise of the Scratches and Changes.